will, please rise. Need to come to order. Bow with me as we pray. Our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come into this place so that we can talk about our community and how we can better our community for one another. Bless us in our conversation and help us in our decisions. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Remain standing. Let's pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Gentlemen, you have the agenda before you. Is there any corrections, deletions, or additions need to be made? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. We have under presentations tonight, our first one is a recognition of Master Police Officer for obtaining an Advanced Law Enforcement Officer Certificate for North Carolina Education and Training and Standards. Chief Scott, I'm going to recognize you if you'll give us some particulars of this fine, outstanding work of the officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'd ask Officer Wilson to step up here with me, please. Officer Wilson is our latest recipient of the Advanced Certificate from the Commission for the State, for the Training Commission for the State of North Carolina. They have a three-tiered certificate program, the first of which is a basic certificate where officers who complete their training and become a police officer receive. The second is an intermediate certificate, and the third and final is the advanced. Officer Wilson is receiving the advanced certificate tonight. That required him to receive his bachelor's degree as well as be at least 6 years in law enforcement and have over 480 additional hours of training as a law enforcement officer. It's a great step. He joins a pool of 12 other officers in the Smithfield Police Department that have their advanced certificate. It's a very prestigious award, and I'm very proud to offer this to him. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. We just want to say on behalf of the council as well as myself, we're proud to have you in Smithfield. This is a great accomplishment, and you're an example for the others to follow. And Chief, we recognize him tonight and your department are doing a great job, and we just want to say thank you and congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you, Officer Wilson. Keep up the good work. It's always a pleasure to do those and open up the meeting. It sort of sets the tone for the rest of the meeting. Our second presentation is equally as exciting. We have our Smithfield-Selma High School History Project here tonight. Joseph Smith, a member of the high school faculty out there, is going to share some with us. And Mr. Smith, I'll just let you take the floor. How about that?
Good afternoon, evening. My name is Joseph Smith. I teach Johnston County history. It's a course that we created back in 2003 over West Johnston, and where I've taught seems to have followed me along. And it's just the idea of trying to preserve as much of the county's history as possible, make new history where we can. And this year we had in our class 3 big projects, so actually 2 of them were sort of building together. One of the projects was going to teach elementary school at South Smithfield. Another one is doing a bit of history to record for however long it can stay in the libraries. And the biggest project that we have tried to do this year is make landmarks in Smithfield and Johnston County as a whole to sort of merge with technology that exists as it is. And my students got together in groups and made videos of places that currently have markers, especially in Smithfield. For example, the marker where it says Sherman's March on 301, there was a video about this, about the importance of it and its role in U.S. history and local. And there was also a video that was done on where Sherman received news of Lee's surrender, Bentonville battleground, and on Edward Pugh, our congressman. And what they were hoping to do is have this video and put it into a public location so that if a person from outside or even inside Smithfield wanted to know more about it, and besides what's just on the actual plaque, they can watch a video using a smartphone and a QR reader that's currently one of the newer things out there. So the idea is they would take their cell phone with a QR reader, go up to it, scan it at the plaque, walk away and hear and see a video on why this is important to U.S. and North Carolina history. And just to show you what we're looking at, this would be an example of the QR code. Right now, we've already got the QR codes made and all the videos are already made. As of right now, I can take my smartphone with papers in my pocket and I can scan this QR code, anyone could, and it will take you to a video on YouTube. This one will take you to Sherman's March. It'll show me if I have earphones, I can watch the video. Again, that kids have already made interview local historians, teachers, and whatnot about the site. And so you can walk away from the demo and know more about Smithfield and its history than what you knew before, what you get from a plaque. And again, the sites I have, and I'll let you know if you know where they are because they're here. So that's the idea. The hope is that we can put a QR code near those plaques so that if a person came in, they could read, scan, and then go on and see the other ones. And with hopes that in the following years we can add more and more of these so that Smithfield could be possibly a history, not maybe destination possible, but at least a place where you can have technology meet history in a way that could really enhance the sites that we have in Smithfield. And the class would really like to see those codes where anyone could get to them, and that's what they're hoping to do.
Do you have an example? You showed me. Why don't we share with the council? Just a brief example, yes, of what it shows you.
Right here is one. It's on YouTube. This is where Sherman received news of Lee's surrender, and the volume is just coming from the laptop, I was told. So they're about 2 minutes or so. If I can get the full screen somehow. And again, what we you'll be able to hear it if with the other earphones in your ear. And so again, this is a student-made project. I think this was Will Baggett right here, and his group made this one in particular. Again, there are 4 of them out there. But
I think it's kind of difficult to hear, but the gist is if you scan the barcode, this video comes up.
It will automatically pop up on your smartphone, yes, sir.
And the audible as well as the visual.
The audio and the visual, and the idea is that these videos have been optimized so that they would work with earphones the best and not blow a person's eardrums out.
Council, I was really impressed when we were asked to become a partner with this, and basically they're looking for our agreement to go to the historical sites and put the barcodes up, since it is town property or historical site, so that we can help educate the public, and that's why they wanted to hear. But I see so many advantages to this, not just at these particular locations, but anywhere in Smithfield, at the river, in other places Mr. Smith and I spoke about, and I was very excited about him and coming and sharing this project that the class has done.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's a great idea. I'm in my mind, I'm wondering what these signs are going to look like.
That, the code that he showed originally, if you'll flip back to that, Mr. Smith had indicated, as well as Mike had indicated, that we would have some type of placards, like laminate placards, sort of like what you see in a landscape yard. Is that right, Mike? That we could put down beside the historical site, and very tastefully done, so it's not, appearance is not an issue. And then they could actually go and barcode those at that site. Go ahead.
The idea that the code would be, where you don't have to walk right up to the code, you can stand back maybe 5-6 feet, about a, say, David or so, a landscape marker, so that again I read, I scan, and I listen and watch the video. So it really is not so hard, maybe like this or so, maybe stand about 8 tall, where it's not really obscuring the actual plaque that's there.
It's a great idea. I think it's wonderful that we're involved to that technology, and the students are doing this. I applaud the students for this endeavor, as well as your direction, Mr. Smith.
There are some that are here, if you would mind, ladies and gentlemen.
I think what Mr. Smith and the school is looking for, the history class, is for us to partner with them and say, yes, let's get these barcodes together. And I know Mr. Taylor said that he was going to come back with what looks like the marker that we're physically going to put on the ground, but in concept and idea, I think this is a wonderful thing for us to approve and support. And I'd ask that we do that. Thank you again for your presentation. How's the council feel about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think we need to support the schools, support the students, maintain, preserve our history. Thank you for your efforts.
Mr. Williams?
I think they need to, they need to work with the beautification people. So we're putting the placard down, it'll be inconsistent with whatever, however.
I had mentioned it to Mr. Branch. Where's Lynn? I had mentioned it to him and said once we get these things together that we could actually do a visual run and see how it looks to make sure.
Well, the
Appearance Commission, and make sure it looks good. I think, yes, sir.
So would it be appropriate to make a motion that we approve the request and ask them to work with Paul Embler and his staff and the Appearance Commission to work out the details of it?
I think a motion is generally in order, and I think that would be most appropriate.
I'll make that a motion.
A second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Let's move forward. Again, I applaud you and your leadership to the school. Mr. Taylor, you got a good man there, and students, y'all have done a great job. Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's going to make a big difference in our community for years to come. It really will. Thanks again. Okay, our third presentation will be the consideration of Resolution 511 for the family of Deputy Clendon Paul West Sr. to the US 70 West Market Street News River Bridge. This information, and we have the family here tonight, and I spoke to Miss Angie about just coming and sharing with us. All the information is in your packet. And Angie, why don't you just come forward and just give us a brief synopsis of what you're hoping to see, and so we can take it under advisement.
I first contacted Sheriff Bizzle to get his input after speaking with my family about having the bridge dedicated to Paul, who was killed in line of duty September 11th of 1995. This week is particularly hard because we've been sitting in court this week dealing with an appeal concerning my brother's case, but that's okay. I contacted some members at DOT who have done this for some other police families and learned that they've never told a police officer's family no, that bridges are reserved for officers who are killed in line of duty. And so I went to Sheriff Bizzle and asked, what do you think of this idea of having the bridge dedicated to Paul? Sheriff Bizzle was on board with the idea. That's a bridge that's kind of between where my family grew up and where they live now. It's also the last bridge his body ever crossed before being buried at sunset. And so I asked Sheriff Bizzle, he sent me to the mayor. I put together the packet with the Supreme Court opinion, with the information I got from DOT, with a little bit of a biography of Paul, who grew up here, he was born here, he was raised here, he raised his son here, his son's now raising his family here. And I just thought I would love for you to pass the resolution. My family supports me. I don't know if any of them want to say anything else, and I'm certainly open to any questions about it.
Anybody have any questions of Angie? I think you've got a pretty detailed package of information. She did a great job putting the stuff together. I really appreciate that. And like I say, the family's all here. If there's any other body of the family would like to be heard, you're sure welcome to be heard in the presentation. If not, I think we pretty much have the idea, but I'd be glad to let you come forward. Anybody? Does council have any comments or suggestions? Okay. Thank you, Angie. How does the council feel? I know this is something we want to take in consideration and probably think about and make sure we're doing the right thing for the family as well as for the community. I'd be glad to entertain any comments or motions that the board may have.
Mr. Mayor, I respect the family and their concerns and proposal for the naming of the bridge. However, I would like to take in consideration that we table that proposal.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any other motions or discussion?
Have we done this for any other bridge?
Not to my knowledge, I don't think. I know we have never named a bridge for law enforcement personnel in the city that I'm aware of.
It's been done in the county, but the town has not done anything. We did go along with the bridge for Carol Stevens.
And of course, the statute is pretty clear about naming of bridges in North Carolina. And so, if there is any naming, that's how it needs to be done. I did talk with the sheriff this afternoon. He sends his condolences, not been able to be here, but he had another prior commitment. But he said he would definitely go with the wishes of the council. If we needed more time to think on it, what have you, he would understand that. But he was simply supporting of the family and was very supportive of the idea. But we do have a motion that we table it for further consideration.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. What this means, family, is basically they're going to take more advisement, going to think about it, come with some ideas. As I mentioned to you earlier, we tend to want to make sure we do it right the first time. Okay, so we do appreciate your coming and concern. I happen to know Paul personally, and he was a fine fella. Seen his son grow up, his family, most of them, and we appreciate you being part of the community. It means a lot to us. So we just want to make sure we do the right thing. Okay? Thank you for your presentation. We really do. Okay. We come now to the section of public hearings. Our first public hearing is the applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to operate an in-home daycare facility on the property located within an R6 residential zoning district. The property considered for approval is located on 7818A Martin Luther King Drive, approximately 200 feet south of the intersection with the Community College Road, further identified as Johnston County. Tax ID number is listed. Mr. Embler, I'll recognize you. First of all, I need a motion that we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye. Those opposed, consider this in the public hearing.
Prior to starting the staff report on this particular hearing, I'd also like to make note that the public hearing that was advertised for ESA renewables they asked for that to be withdrawn and heard next month due to the fact staff had requested a number of items to be submitted, and they were not able to get it to us in time for the cutoff of the agenda packet. Okay, this public hearing is very similar to the one that you had last month. It's an in-home daycare center. Just to highlight a few of the things, can be no more than 8 children in the home daycare, and it has to be permitted by the state. What the council is doing is giving permission for the use to be there, but the actual regulatory agency on the is the state of North Carolina. The property is a 0.13 acre R6 residential. It is a residential duplex. It's located on Martin Luther King Boulevard. You have some attachments in there with maps, an aerial map that shows the location, and you also have a site plan that has been prepared by a surveyor. The planning board last month made recommendation that unanimously that the plan be approved with 3 conditions. One, that it has a fenced outdoor play area. Second, that provide an adequate child drop-off that was not in the public right-of-way, and that as long as the applicant maintains the license with the state once it's received, the permit is, the conditional use is valid, but if the permit is at default with the state, then the conditional use is null and void. So with that, the council was asked to take into consideration by finding the fact, which you have in your packet, and we stand for staff to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Embler before we allow the applicant maybe to speak?
I rode out there and looked at the road by. I didn't stop and get out. But I noticed the 2 small driveway cuts that are mentioned in the report. And my question is, I dropped off children for years where I backed out of a driveway. So backing out, dropping a child off and backing out is not a problem unless it's a very, very busy road. Is that road going to be very busy during drop-off and pickup times? Or?
Well, that's primarily why we're asking for a loop drive. If you will notice on the map that's prepared by Jimmy Barber Surveyor, we're showing a loop drive. The client is showing a loop drive through there to avoid having to back out. The traffic count on Martin Luther King is significant, particularly with the growth of the community college. And due to the congestion that's there at exit 95 due to construction, a lot of folks now get off at exit 93 and come in the back way to the college. So traffic counts are up significantly on Martin Luther King.
So on your recommendation, it says site plan showing adequate driveways that provide for safe ingress and egress. It does not condition it on a circle drive.
Staff's recommendation to the planning board was a loop drive as shown on this map.
Page 22.
And the planning board put it back on us to make sure that there was an adequate drive. So in staff's opinion, it needs to be a loop drive in order to be safely to have a car get off out of the right of way onto the property, discharge or pick up the children, and then leave the property without having to back. It needs to be a one-way situation.
Mr.
Well, I was just going to say that the planning board recommendation, number 2 says it identifies that Exhibit B as part of the recommendation. So it does identify that plan as a plan that they are recommending that we.
So adequate means loop.
Yes.
It's one and the same.
And I did, just to speak on that as well, I did drive by to look at this site, and I saw the proposals by the planning board, and it looks like those provisions were met.
It does appear that it can be, yes.
Okay, I understand the applicant's here.
Mr. One more question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It mentions it's this is a duplex, and this may be a question for the applicant. I'm not sure, but is the plan to have the daycare in both sides of the duplex? Or will one side of the duplex be rented and one side of the duplex be a daycare?
I will ask the applicant to answer that question.
If you'll come forward and state your name for the clerk and then respond to Mr. Moore, he can restate his question if need be.
Hi, I'm Katina Blue, and to answer your question, one side only, which is A, and the other side is rented currently, and that's why they asked me to have adequate parking for both sides, and that's what we have done.
Who currently?
Before, let me interrupt if I can. Before we go further, we should have sworn the applicant.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and do that, and we'll take a quick second.
Okay.
Yeah, do them both.
I affirm.
Okay,
Thank you.
So this is going to go back to probably to a question to Mr. Embler. Okay, so we have a rental property and we have a circle driveway. First of all, how many kids again are we looking at?
I'm the owner of the property, and I do use it as a rental property. It does meet code. Duplexes can't operate in home daycare.
Understood.
We have up to 8 children that can be in the daycare at one point in time, but there's not enough space for 8. That's just what the state allows.
Okay, so
And
you're the actual owner
I
of
am.
the duplex?
I am the owner.
Okay, all right, so that actually helps me some, because my
Okay.
concern would be, yes, we have a circle driveway, but if you've got 8 or 9 cars pulling in to drop
Right.
kids off in the morning, what about your renter who is in that other side trying to get out in the morning, maybe in a hurry to go to
Right.
work, and could put kids at danger?
Right. That's not an issue because of the site plan that we drew up. Both sides can park all the way down and actually can circle out. So as far as 8 cars coming in at one time, the odds of that is very minimal.
All right, so there's plenty of, it's hard to tell from,
Oh, yeah.
from
Have a
this
bigger
site,
drawing.
so from this site plan. So would the duplex be on the A side or the B side? I mean, excuse me, the
The daycare is on the
Daycare.
A side.
the A side. So, okay, so your duplex B would still be able to pull straight in off of Martin Luther King
That's correct.
Boulevard and Park.
That's correct. In which we have been doing for over 80 years. It was my grandmother's place.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant? Do you heard Mr. Embler in his statements that he conveyed to the board accurate to your knowledge?
I didn't hear anything that was incorrect. One thing I would like to add is that we did pay money to get the survey done, and it is definitely in compliance with what they requested of us. We have 2 parking spaces per side for each of the tenants, as well as the circular driveway in the site plan. As far as the fence is concerned, all of that, as far as the measurements and stuff, would be dictated by the state. I just have to have the permission to be able to meet with them to do that.
I just want to make sure what he rendered was on your behalf is accurate.
What I understood, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions of anyone?
You said you had, I got one, you said you had ample parking for both tenants? Are you going to be operating the daycare
We
inside?
both are, and I actually have Karima, who's the tenant of A,
Okay,
who's here with me now.
but it'll be you and she
And she.
operating the business?
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Council, we come now to the section of finding of fact evaluation form found on page 18. You see this petition and reference that we've heard. How do you feel about the findings of facts? I can read each one of them unless you gentlemen do.
I move that we approve finding of fact A, B, C, and D as stated in the packet.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? With that being said, then we'll look at the last item on this finding of fact. that we either grant or deny the subject to following as has been mentioned. Have a motion that we grant the petition.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Discussion.
Yep, discussion.
I would like to, on the conditions, make sure, obviously, the fenced outdoor space, but also where, instead of it saying adequate driveways, that it state, as part of, I know it's in the planning board, but the planning board meeting minutes has nothing to do with what we're doing here tonight. So I would like a condition of it to be that it has a circle driveway, as stated in
Exhibit B.
in the Exhibit B. Or, I guess, leave it up to the planning staff if there needs to be any tweaks.
We will write that as a condition of their zoning permit when they file for that after they get their state approval.
Okay. And my only other concern is, I feel much more comfortable with that the operator is actually the property owner, and I know that the tenant's here, and it doesn't seem that she's opposed to it. But what about the next tenant that comes in? If there is a parking situation there, this is a question maybe for Paul. Can that be reviewed after a year or whatever to see? I mean,
Well, the town's requirement for a duplex is that there's 2 spaces per unit. That's all that we have as far as the requirement. We don't talk about in the code as to where the spaces have to be provided, but that it would be one thing that we could follow up on. However, the question of when tenant change comes and stuff, we really don't know that unless there's an application made for utility billing changes. And then we just have to put a tab on it and watch for it.
If she owns the property and she decided to get another renter, it'll be up to that renter and her how they deal with the parking situation, as long as she do what we are requiring already.
Well, that is true. There's no doubt about it, but I'll draw you to number D. The location and the character of the use, if developed according to the plan as submitted and approved, will be in harmony with the area which it is located. The conditional use shall demonstrate conformance to the land use plan or any effect at that time address impacts of the property required. Another tenant moving in may not be as happy going out in the mornings and having a driveway full of cars. And what I'm saying is they may, well, I'll draw you to number 1. The use will not materially endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Okay? So that's my only concern. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you, but it's a possibility.
And I don't think that should be should be our basic concern if she owns the property. It's between her and the tenant. And if the tenant, she notified the tenant whenever they move in, what the conditions is, then that shouldn't be our.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Charles. I think if she wasn't the property owner of the duplex, then I think that would be an issue.
We could speak to that issue, but I don't
this
think
is not, I don't think this applied to this application because she is the owner of the property. She would determine that.
Add something. The way the state regulates in-home daycare, she not only, she doesn't have to own the property, but she has to reside there. So if she were to sell the property and move, then the permit is no longer valid.
So does the owner of the business, are you going to reside in the property?
That's a little different. There's 2 owners, that's she and I. We co-own the daycare. I am the owner of the property asking for a conditional use for it to actually take place on my land. If I decided that I wanted to move the daycare to another place, I would have to go before the state, and I would have to go before whoever it is to see if I can operate out of that building. That's totally different than what I'm asking here today concerning the actual operation of the daycare on my property. The Division of Child Development actually verified, the owners of the daycare actually physically there with the children. I also wanted to clarify about the circular driveway, if it could be viewed, not circular, because interpretation of circular could go with.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, the stipulation was per the plan. And there's discussion also, Mr. Williams, and I have the right to have discussion on a motion that has been made and seconded. And I'm just trying to make sure that we're going to do the right thing, okay? So, and I totally understand what you're trying to do, but my concern is for a future tenant moving in. But if I'll leave that to Mr. Embler and his staff, and if he feels comfortable.
Well, that's that question. I want to make sure the request, as I understand it, is the conditional use to be used as a daycare facility. And I understand you're going to use side A. Are you asking, though, permission for just side A or A and B at your choice?
I'm only asking just for A.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify. And I think, Council, I would recommend that, again, and I don't know the space requirements. I know the state does have basically the final word in this. But I think probably if that's the request, I would probably add that as a condition. It sounds like the applicant is okay with that only side A be used for the daycare. Because if that's your request, I think that would probably protect a lot of issues there, because otherwise I think you get in, if you go from A to A and B, the car traffic could pick up immediately, a lot of things could change pretty quickly. And since this does go with the land, I mean, the owner, the applicant here could sell it, and it could go with a new applicant coming in who doesn't know whether they can use A and B for both sides of the daycare. If that's not a concern, you certainly wouldn't have to do that, but I think given what the request is, and that is conditional use, I would probably recommend that you actually make A, as requested, limit that to the daycare facility as one of your conditions.
Okay. We have
I need to ask one question from staff's point of view. Are you actually going to live in the A side? One of the two people that are going to be owners of the daycare, are you physically going to live in the A side? Okay. Then it's a valid permit, because that is a requirement by the state. They have to live where the permit is issued.
Mr. Williams, I understand you've got a motion on the petition, but does your motion include the conditions that we talked about? The three conditions listed, 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Mr. Moore, you good with the 1, 2, and 3 conditions?
I am.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Before we take a final vote, I do need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second. Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, now we have a motion and a second that we approve and grant the request with 1, 2, and 3 in provisions. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Good luck with your endeavors. Okay, we have our second public hearing. The applicant is seeking a subdivision approval to divide one lot totaling 12.1 acres into 3 individual lots located on the R20A residential agricultural zoning district. The property considered for the approval is located on the northeast side of Barber Road, approximately 3,500 feet east of the intersection of US 70 Business Highway West, and further identified as Johnston County tax listing as... Excuse me?
Which one are you on now? 2?
Public hearing 2.
Okay, well, you're reading out of 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Carry on.
Okay. Thank you for watching over there, Ms. Dogman. I appreciate that. Any rate, as stated, we are looking at public hearing number 2. So I need a motion that we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I need a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Similar, recognize you. Public hearing is open.
In accordance with Article 2, Section 271 of the Town of Smithfield Unified Development Ordinance, a division or tract of land in single ownership whose entire area is no greater than 2 acres into not more than 3 lots where no street right-of-way dedication is involved, and where resulting lots are equal to or exceed the standards contained in Article 27. In essence, gentlemen, that is the restatement of the state law regarding subdivisions. basically tracts 2 acres or less divided into 3 lots are exempt from subdivision regulations. Our ordinance has 2 ways to approve subdivisions. One reason why we're having this meeting tonight, we have subdivisions so infrequently, I felt that it was necessary to brief you on it. Normally, in the course of a subdivision approval, it would not require a public hearing, but I wanted to make sure you understood where and why the recommendation from staff's coming. Our ordinance says that any tract of land 5 acres or less can be administratively approved without council approval, providing that it's already on a public street, that already has water and sewer accessible to it, and several other criteria. That's an administratively approved subdivision. This subdivision does not meet that criteria because, one, it's a 12-acre tract. It's larger than 2 acres, so it's not exempt by state standards. And number 2, it cannot be administratively approved by our ordinance by staff because it's greater than 5 acres. So that's why it's being brought forward to you tonight. The proposed division of land begins with a tract of land whose entire area is greater than 2 acres. Therefore, the planning board recommended and city council approval is required. The proposed division creates 2 newly created 2 newly created 1-acre lots with a remainder of 10.1 acres. All lots meet or exceed the Town of Smithfield Unified Development Ordinance standards for newly created lots by virtue of having adequate road frontage and meeting minimum lot size. All proposed lots will be served by a private well and septic tank and must be permitted by Johnston County Environmental Health. The Planning Board at its November 1st meeting unanimously voted to recommend approval of the preliminary plat subdivision, and the Town Council was requested to review the petition and make a decision on the preliminary plat subdivision. You have a photographic map in your packet from Johnston County GIS showing you the overall tract of land. You also have a survey prepared by Southwind Survey. The overall tract of land is 12.01 acres. You can see 2 1-acre lots are going to be cut out that front on Barber Road, and that the remainder, or 10 acres, also has frontage on Barber Road.
Any questions for Mr. Emler? The applicants are here, if I understand correctly. Is what he stated correct and accurate on your? Right. Okay. You wish to be heard, or just take the facts as been stated? Okay. That being said, we'll have a motion that we can close the public hearing. Does anyone else wishes to be heard?
I'll make a motion we close the public hearing.
Second. Motion second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Gentlemen, you've heard the request. It is not a finding of fact. It's simply a approval as submitted or with recommendations of the planning or whatever your wishes may be. So I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second to approve as submitted through the planning. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you with your endeavors there. Okay, we come now to the section of public comments. Does anyone in the audience wish to be heard? Feel free to come forward. We'll be glad to listen to you. Okay. No one wish to be heard. Section of consent agenda. Do I have a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? Consent agenda has been approved, Madam Clerk. Going to the business items. Item number 1 is authorization to allow the reallocation of funds to the Johnson Health Foundation in an amount of $25,000 from the utility fund as previously agreed for the remaining funds that were pledged to the SECU Hospice House and 0809 budget. Mr. Manager, I recognize you for a conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, this is a request. This is an item that was not budgeted, and it was, frankly, it was unknown and came up as a little bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. I think some on council who have been there for, going back to this 3 or 4 year period, will recall that there was apparently a discussion with the council presented to the board, and it appears that either a special meeting or perhaps a budget session for this commitment of funds in the amount of $25,000 per year for 4 years to support the Johnston Health Foundation for the hospice house. And going back and looking at the records, apparently there were payments made in 08, 09, 09, 10, and then last year in 2011 and 2012. But it appears that in 2010, 2011, a payment was not made. And so there was one payment short. Not really certain. Actually, the paperwork and the process was really, frankly, difficult to track down in the record. But there does appear to be evidence that there was a discussion and a request and an approval by the council. From the documents, and certainly the town has already paid $75,000 toward that amount. It's my understanding, actually I spoke to Richard Hicks, I think he was under the impression that when the payment was made last year that was the last payment, so I don't think he was aware that the year before there had not been a payment made, and he thought that was the last payment made. I think we were contacted by a representative of the hospice house about the last year's payment, and that's when it was first brought to my attention. I guess about a month ago now, or less than a month ago. So the request here is basically to allow us to make this final payment, which would conclude the entire $100,000 pledge. We would have to use contingency funds out of our budget, and it feels like the obligation is there to make that payment, and so we're just trying to move forward and wrap this up. So that's the request. Our finance director, Ms. Hogan, is here. If there's any questions, she might have a little bit more light to shed on this, but I think those are the bare facts that we have.
Any questions of the manager? Are there any minutes of any meeting where this was approved?
I would think there would be, but yeah. It was
My
here.
reflection is the meeting was held in general council session.
It was.
Open session. The commitment was Mr. Gerwin Stevenson did the presentation on behalf of the hospice center. Most cities in Smithfield in like kind donated over a 4 or 5 year period. I can't remember the week. Obviously a 4 year period, $25,000 each year to help facilitate with this need. And it was a unanimous vote at that time of the board. I don't know. That's my reflection. I haven't seen any minutes, but
I would think there would be.
Mr. Ogburn, Mr. Moore, y'all were here.
The overall concept, I do remember.
And that commitment was made.
We sold them that land.
It used to be Parks and Rec, ball field, Old Bingham Park, and right beside the Armory, as you all know. But it was a commitment we had to the hospice.
What year was the payment made?
Mr. Manager, I think it was 9, 10, or what was it, 11?
The first payment was made in
11.
11.
Well, the first payment was made in 08, 09. If you're talking about the first year.
Was not made.
And then we skipped the year. What year did we skip?
Oh, looks like the 2010, 2011 was the year that we skipped.
Well,
It's embarrassing.
it didn't show up in any kind of
Well, it's sadly to say that it did not, apparently, but looking at it as our commitment and what this center means to our community.
I'm not questioning our commitment.
How did this come up? Who brought it to our attention?
Actually, the hospice center brought it to our attention. And, to fulfill our pledge.
Well, let's don't
Maybe
do
we
that
don't
till they
need to
come.
look at our
Till they come asking.
Maybe someone else was.
Exactly, that's what we need
They
to look
tend to
at.
have a way of finding us, it seems like.
So make it clear, in my mind, we've gone back and looked, and we have not paid him that $25,000. That's my understanding. We have
That's true.
researched that.
We have verified the 3 out of the 4 payments. We have verified that. Yeah.
Mary?
It was budgeted all 4 years. That's what the approval was in. It was in the budget that was approved by council. And the payment
Never
was
made.
at the end of that year, it actually got rolled to the fund balance. $25,000 to the fund balance. Actually, could be used, but we had money to do it out of contingency. This
So-
kind of helps me look our fund balance and what's really happening. But this
Oh.
is the second time, you know, the same thing happened with the Harper house as well. So it's glad to be the same.
Please.
So, yeah, we're just hoping,
Did we make any money on the interest that we get paid?
I've got a question on where it's coming from.
I have to tell you, Mr. Mayor,
That's true. It is out of the contingency for the utility fund, and at the time the commitment was made, that's the history of the payments were made, the preceding three were all made from the utility fund, basically.
Where in the financials, what page is that fund on? I noticed in years past it was made out of 9101, but this year it's being proposed that we make it out of 3900. I don't see a 3900.
I think 3,900, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 3,900 was what it was set up before in the past, and it was a zero. It was zero this year because it wasn't budgeted in that fund. So that's why the new line item is taken out of, I guess you would call it the contingency utility fund, is where that's coming
So
from.
they have a contingency at line 5720, which has sufficient funds appropriated for it.
yeah, we'll transfer it out of there and put it in the appropriate account. So that we'll be able to track it at some point. They come back in 3 years and say, we'll see the payments come out of the same account. It's just kind of good habit. We put some pay straight out of the contingency, it's harder to track.
Okay.
So I'd rather move it over to that other account, but the other ones are all paid out.
Okay, you've heard the suggestion or recommendation from the manager. How says the board?
I move that we approve the transfer out of the utility contingency fund, line item 31, 72030, 5720, and put it in the appropriate account to pay to the hospice house.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
is there a way for us to make sure something like this doesn't happen? Is there a way that we could ask staff to look at our obligations and have some book or some report that jogged their mind and our minds about these types of things, because there could be other things out there that we might get a call about.
I think we've got the mechanisms in place with the reporting entity now that we didn't have in prior past with what we're getting now. Mr. Ashley, Mr. Broadwood, he used to be on books. But we do need to state that in those reports, that when we conclude, I think, Mary, Mr. Manager, when we conclude such a payment, or even whether it be Harbor or whatever through that year, that we show the commitment has been rendered.
Well, my point is, we obviously owed that money. We had an obligation to them. We made an obligation, and we need to live up to our obligations. But, there are situations that we're not able to control. Employee leaving, an employee being terminated, an employee dying, that could cause something like this to happen again. And I just would hope that we can come up with some system to make sure that we've got this out in the open for all of us and our staff to have that in black and white. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think with some of the turnover, that's probably, it would have been caught, but for that. I think you're right in that respect. And I think typically what you'll see, and with this being our first budget, but going forward, is that, we try and note these kind of short-term, not like your debt to repay a facility for 20 years. That's in a different, a different fund or a capital fund, or in our debt service. You'll see notes in the budget that will say, in this case, hospice house, this is the fourth and final year of a 4-year commitment. It'll be in that budget note. It'll be pretty easy to track. But, and I think, as Mary said, we hope there aren't any more surprises, but I think that's what you'll see, under our watch, basically, that we'll be able to carry forward.
But we budgeted for it, it just didn't get paid.
Well, Perry, what I think we need to do, we spend a lot of time in budget meetings and crafting the next year's budget. But what I think we need to do is when the fiscal year is over, we need to have a budget meeting reviewing the past year's budget and seeing the amendments we made and things like that. That doesn't answer your question.
No, it doesn't. I have no problem with that. I'm just saying we need to denote somewhere what our obligations are. Be it this, be it a bank note, which a bank will obviously send us, but we just need to, what if they hadn't contacted us? We could have gone indefinitely? I mean, was it not written down somewhere that visibly?
It was authorized in the budget, it never got paid.
Just didn't happen. Nobody wrote the check.
So it was like, give me vacation time money or write them a check? Is that what we're saying? I mean, did it come during that time frame?
It was in that 11 year.
My point is, I think we need to have a catch-all, a safeguard to make sure this stuff gets done. This is embarrassing.
Why don't we review, make sure, Mr. Manager, if there's any other communities that does any kind of checks and balances different than what we do to ensure obligations paid. How about we just listserv that and see what's out there?
Maybe this could be one of the items in our winter retreat, that when we get to the winter retreat, maybe the manager or the financial director, he come up with some kind of system or plan that, they can present to us that, we can look over and we can help tweet it to make sure that, these things don't happen.
Remember that, Mr. Williams. Bring that back to us during retreat. All right. Let's go to the second item. Consideration for proposal financial fund balance policy, town general's finances. Mr. Manager.
Mayor, as you know, the council's been reviewing our proposed financial and fund balance policy for the last couple of months. There was discussion last month about a few of the items, as I think we got most of the language in the broader portions of the policy worked out, and there were a few last remaining kind of fill-in-the-blank items that have been narrowed down to, which I think we've got. The consensus at the last discussion was to get some feedback from council and then go ahead and make a recommendation. And if you look at the materials provided, you'll see that after that discussion, basically the items that were left incompleted, my recommendation is to go along these or go in this direction. That is, you can follow these on page 4 of the proposed policy, that we do adopt a policy that we require from nonprofits that we make a contribution toward, that we require either a financial statement or an annual audit, if that's available each year from such nonprofit, if they receive any money from the town. So that was one that I think there was a pretty strong consensus in that regard from the council, and that change has been made in the proposed policy. Other issues that were remaining is that when the fund balance fell below the targeted fund balance amount, that I recommend that the target fund balance amount be 25%. There seemed to be some consensus there. And if it's under that target amount, as we presently are, that the town prepare a 4-year plan to rebuild the fund balance using a minimum of 2% of general fund expenditures, and that's as defined within the policy. Those changes are on pages 2 and 3, which of the policy, that's going to be, looks like it'll be on 75 and 76 of the packet materials. So basically, there was discussion, I think, the original recommendation was for a 5-year repayment plan if we're below the targeted amount. And there was some discussion about going as low as 3 years, and basically, my recommendation is in between that at 4 years, which I think we can handle. And certainly, you can, make your own adjustments year by year as you deem appropriate. This is a policy, not an ordinance, and you can make that change, as the council deems most appropriate for the year in question. Those are the primary changes to the policy. I think everything else was generally agreed on by the council at the last meeting or at the end of the last meeting. And that is my recommendation. Certainly, if there's any questions or comments, we can take those up also.
Paul, I have a couple questions for you. On page 75, number 6, it says the excess general fund balance available for appropriation may be used to fund one-time capital expenditures or other one-time costs if it has not been transferred to the capital reserve fund. My understanding of that is that the excess general fund balance that would be above 25%.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Exactly.
And then the other question I have to you is, in conversations with Mary a little earlier, it is my understanding, with the approval of this, it will give her the ability to open up that separate account that would house these capital reserve funds. Am I right in understanding what she said? No. So have you already opened up a account for this reserve fund balance? In addition to this, or as part of this?
Well, there was permission for the fund balance account. That happened probably 2 months ago now. Tonight, on the consent agenda, you approved, gave authority to open an account for the PAL bill fund, so that will happen in the next day or two. And actually, the capital reserve fund, that's a completely different, that's a different set or different monies than just the basic fund balance. So that's a different, those are, some call those project funds. There's different ways to account for that. That's a different, you can do that project by project. And that will be a different set of monies, really set. You have to describe what that capital fund is going to be, what those funds are going to be used for. So that'll be more on a case-by-case basis. But the fund balance account has been opened up, and now the authority has been issued for the PAL bill fund. So we'll have those opened up separately, or the PAL bill one probably later this week, or within the next week, without any problem. So this is a different. That's more of a working account for a specific project or project.
So the fund balance account, which I refer to as a reserve fund balance account, has already been opened.
That has been opened.
Okay.
Correct.
When do we get the Powell bill money? When is that issued?
They actually, it used to be once a year, and going back about a year or 2 years ago, they now do one in December, and then I want to say the end of the, yeah, they're about 2 months apart. So I'm not sure why.
Fully funded by the state?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the formula is essentially the same.
They're not taking money? Not yet.
Yes, sir. I haven't heard that conversation come up as it did a few years ago, so so far so good.
Not yet.
Okay. Any questions on fund balance policy as read? The request is that we adopt the financial and fund balance policy.
Mr. Mayor, I have read this a couple of times. I think that it's a very positive step, and I thank staff for working diligently to bring this to us. Obviously, this is a step in the right direction, and obviously we have the ability to adjust this as we may feel necessary in the future. So with that, I'd make a motion that we adopt this town financial and fund balance policy.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Item 3, consideration of the 2013 council regular meeting schedule. This is a meeting schedule that we have to approve. You've seen the schedule in your packet. Do note some of those changes where, like, January 1st falls on the first Tuesday. We'll move that to the 8th, as we historically do. Are there any corrections or concerns over the schedule?
The only thing I would add is that, and I've asked for it before, I would like to have additional meetings throughout the year. Call them workshop meetings, workshop agenda setting meetings. A lot of times we get in here at these meetings, we've had 1 week notice on a lot of information that we're asked to make very important decisions on. I just think additional meetings, we don't have to have additional meeting every month, but I would like to see some additional meetings so that the council can be fully apprised of the issues and informed of the issues affecting the town.
Mr. Mayor, in January of 2013, if we have that meeting on January 8th, I will not be in attendance. I have to be My business requires me to be out from the 6th to about the 16th. And I would ask the council if there's any feasibility of having it the week of the 1st, but not on the 1st, perhaps the 2nd or the 3rd. But I just wanted everybody to be aware, if you have it on the 8th, I will not be in attendance.
Whatever pleasure of council is, we can move it or leave it.
Either way.
I don't have any conflicts that I know of if we moved it to the 2nd or 3rd. Personally, I don't have any conflicts moving it to one of those dates if that would accommodate Councilman Harrison and the others are available.
Well, y'all should all know what I say by now. Just tell me when and where, and I'll be here, or wherever we're going to be. The 3rd.
Yeah, we see that. I hope you don't run your business like this.
If you want me to pay my utility bill, I will not be here on January the 8th.
So says the board. What do you want to do? You want to move it, leave it? It's your option.
I'd be fine to meet on the 3rd, that first Thursday.
3rd. Is that a consensus of the board? Yes? Yep, that's true.
They can reschedule.
Yeah.
He's more important than us than them.
They can meet in the conference room. I mean, that's where they meet sometimes.
Okay, do I have a motion that we change that to the 3rd? January 3rd.
I'll make a motion that we change it to the January 3rd.
Second? Do I need a second? Second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? All right, so the first Tuesday night in January will be on the 3rd.
In the council chambers.
In the council chamber. Madam Clerk, you'll make notice to the planning board to make other arrangements.
It might be meet earlier, too.
Yeah, or earlier, sometime, whatever. Okay. So now I need a motion to adopt the rest of the calendar, gentlemen.
I make a motion.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, let's see. Item number 4, consideration of town hall tree replacement, the amount of approximately $2,100. Mr. Branch, Mr. Manager, I don't know who's going to facilitate, but feel free.
Mayor, Mr. Branch is going to present this item. I think there's a little bit of background there from the Appearance Committee and just the need to replace some of the trees that are kind of aging out in the parking lot. And I believe Mr. Harris at that meeting too with the Appearance Committee discussed it. But with that, Mr. Branch.
Good evening. The Public Works Department, along with the Appearance Commission, has received several complaints about the trees in the rear parking lot of Town Hall. Employees and customers both are complaining that their cars are actually getting damaged. There's been 2 reports of body damage where the limbs have actually fell, and then one was actually paint damage from the limbs. But they're actually causing a big nuisance. I went out and looked at them. I spoke with the Appearance Commission too, and they feel the same as the Public Works Department staff. The trees have outgrown their space. They're hideous looking. And we're in dire straits to have those things replaced. I checked with Mr. Embler, and the code requires in parking lots you have to have shade trees. The actual code says it has to have shade trees, and the code to be up to par has to reach a height of a minimum of at least 20 feet. And I'm thinking a parking lot, and same thing probably some of you guys are too. We need something that grows really, really slow, that looks good, that's not going to be a hinder to the parking. And we came up with the paper bark maple. That's a really slow growing tree that will reach that height, and it will provide a good appearance for a parking lot. And again, like I said, it'll be a really, really slow grower. That's the same type of trees that we planted beside Centenary Methodist Church. We have a couple out here on the streetscape project for when we put in a new sidewalk on Market Street. So it'll serve that purpose. The Appearance Commission agreed unanimously that the trees really need to be removed, and they also agreed that we should go with the paperback bark maples. I guess tonight, our request for action to the council for you guys to review this request and allow us to use $2,100 to replace the 14 trees out there and keep a uniform look in the parking lot. In order to do this, these funds will need to be relocated from the general fund contingency line item and other available line items. So that is our request.
Lenny, the work if we approve this, the work for this, you can handle in-house?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In-house we can.
And what would be a time frame to do this? When would you, if we were to approve that tonight, when would you be able to do this?
It would be pressed to try to get it before the actual holiday, but after the first of the year, we would be able to start on it, and within 2 weeks, we could have it removed out and replaced.
I got a question. Does the code say that we must plant shade trees in parking lots? Or does the town code say that if we plant trees in a parking lot, they must be shade trees?
I have to read the exact text, but generally the intent, as it's stated in the code, is to provide shade in the parking lots where it's a hot environment due to the sun on the asphalt. It's cooling.
I'd like maybe clarification on that, because the action form says the town code requires that trees planted in parking lots must be shade trees. That statement is different than requires shade trees to be planted in parking lots. Okay.
This could be a two-part process. We can cut the trees down.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it all together, right?
I think the request is to cut the trees.
Oh, yeah.
And get them down, and then so says the board.
And I just have another question, just in general, for the manager. Do we actually have claims that have been filed?
No.
Not to my knowledge.
So I would advise the manager to immediately, if we have employees that are complaining, to tell the employees not to park under the trees. This would be my recommendation from a liability standpoint on behalf of the town, that don't park under the trees.
Well, Mr. Moore, one of the ones I actually seen, I'm a fireman too across the street, was during the storm, and it was one of the 911 communicators that actually parked there, and a limb fell and hit her car.
Right.
She was the wife of a husband that actually works over there, and I think the other one was an actual church member at the First Baptist Church that had their car damaged. But they never reported it on town insurance or nothing.
I would like to see us go ahead and approve the cutting of the trees if our approval is needed, and then just address the planning after we see how that goes. And we may decide we don't want trees.
I agree with you, Ashley. I think that just go ahead on and cut the trees down. Maybe work with the beautification people, so maybe come up with something, get them down, work with the beautification people, and maybe they'll come up with something that it don't.
I don't disagree with that, except for the fact that I kind of like to have a plan in place beforehand. So it'd be my recommendation that we talk to the Appearance Commission, whatever, and actually have a plan that meets the code before we start cutting trees down. But that's just my feelings on it.
Yeah, well, that's what the whole beautification people, you get with them, and they come up with some kind of idea, maybe in the spring before they make a decision. But we need to bring it back to the council and say, well, this is what we decide to do, and everyone will be, I think.
Already talked.
Yeah, I also was going to say the Appearance Commission has already, their plan is to replace it with the paper bark maple trees.
But I guess, was that based on the fact that they thought that we had to have shade trees, is my question. Okay, that's what I'm trying to find out. That's what I'm trying to find out, if that is the code. Mr. Embler didn't know, so.
We don't change the code, but we're making the recommendation based on your code.
If that tree comes down, or one has to go in place of it, where it says shade tree.
That was clearly what I understood. In fact, I even, after talking to a couple of y'all, I actually called and had a conversation about maybe not putting trees back in, maybe putting bushes. You didn't have to worry about it, and I was told that was.
Well, we use the shade tree that's been recommended by the Appearance Commission is the actual trees we're already using.
Correct.
Streetscape, so it would go in uniformity
Correct.
to what we're putting up, whether it be a shade tree or not, we've already got them in the area. So I think, based on the request, my recommendation to the board would be, let's move forward with it and get them cut and get the trees planted. They're slow-growing trees. It will provide the landscape and streetscape that we need based on the Appearance Commission's recommendation.
I have no problem with planting the trees back, that's not what I'm saying, but that was my question. Do we have to go back with trees, or could we go back with shrubs? And if we went back with shrubs, that could be maintained, then you eliminate the problem of having to cut these same trees down, and limbs falling and so forth in the future. So that, having a problem with planting trees, my question is, do you actually have to go back with trees, or could you go back with a shrub? So I'm fine with trees. If that's what if the pleasure of the board wants to go back to trees, I don't have a problem.
Well, what's the status of this contingency fund that we spend money out of every month?
That's my other question.
Well, I was going to ask that question. Does it have to come out of the contingency fund?
I mean, we raised Cain over putting lights on a historic park in Smithfield, and now we want to plant trees in the parking lot. We seem to have plenty of money to do that. So I don't get it.
Yeah, we actually have that number. Mayor, you remember on the top of your head what the amount was? I know there were some other items in there that were
After this.
115,000.
Now, the 25 comes out of the utility contingency fund.
Right. So we can add that. No, yeah, you're right.
Yes, yeah.
I originally did that. 115 is where we are right now, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
115 is what we were this morning. I subtracted the 21 already. I've been watching it very closely, because it seems like it's like it's on a daily basis.
And we're 5 months into the fiscal year, and we've spent over half the money.
250 of it was in one chunk.
Right.
That was the question, Mayor. Does it have to come for a manager? Does it have to come out of the contingency fund?
No, sir. In fact, you saw some language in there that was or other available funds. I mean, our preference is if there's another, maintenance or another line item that's in Public Works or another maintenance that can be used.
Yeah, Public Works.
We prefer to take it out of that. So that's why we always try and look and find a like item if that's possible before we go to contingency.
Happy you are now. Well, they put notes.
Are the trees on our property?
Yes, sir.
All the trees are on our property?
We own both
Everyone that we're proposing to replace and cut is on our property.
The back row, that's the one close to the building.
Yep, they were actually put in by the town.
Okay?
Why can't this come out of Appearance Commission budget line item? I'm asking.
But we allocated money to the Appearance Commission. Funds, nothing, I don't think.
Well, I think I've already got theirs committed.
Already committed.
$3,500.
We don't have any allocated money right now.
I'm just asking a question.
There is no beautification money for cutting the trees, but
The cutting of the trees ain't gonna cost anything.
well,
It's all in-house, yeah, that's just the actual materials for the placement.
Cut the trees down and table how we plan on
you can do that. Yes, you can.
refurbishing the trees or replanting the trees, but
Whatever you want to do.
or what they're going to do, trees or shrubs or what?
Before we leave this thing, do it, make sure it's verification. Paul, did you have any clarification for us in the ordinance?
those be considered canopy trees by code.
All right, where are we on this thing?
I think this parking lot's grandfathered in under the old landscaping rules, but I don't, I move that we approve the cutting of the existing trees and table the request for replanting.
I'll second that motion.
Substitute that motion. I make a motion that we cut the trees down and take the money out of contingency and get new trees and move on. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay. We got a motion and a second on the second of the replacing of the trees. You can either withdraw your motion or leave it as.
I have a second.
You got a second?
You take the last motion first.
Yeah.
You take Mr. Ogden's motion first.
Okay. The motion that Mr. Ogden got is to proceed forward with cutting the trees and replacement. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
4-3.
So we do
Other motion.
those four are going, these against. So we replace the trees and cut the trees. Okay. Wow, I never saw that coming. Never saw that coming. Okay. I won't be as controversial on the mayor's report, I promise.
Oh, yeah? Wait.
Yeah.
Bring it out.
Yes, sir. Under my report, I just wanted to give you a few things that we're looking at. I gave you a handout from the Johnston County building inspections today. It's just something I ran across. I think WTSB put it on their website today, and I bring you to the residential new, about 3/4 of the way down, just to show activity. This is for county-wide, but it does show an activity of double just about of new residential requests for the county, and from 4 million to around 8 million. This thing has a lot of good data showing some trending, I think, and commercial's another one that's showing good trends, although it seems to be a down during this period, but overall it is up. But anyway, I'll just be providing this information for you periodically. That being said, moving to some of the economic development, the manager and I have been talking about ways to stimulate more economic development. I met with a group today, actually 2 groups today, about bringing potential business here in the community. And both were very excited at what possibilities to bring. So that being said, they're seeing that there's growth in Smithfield and there's opportunity in Smithfield. So we need to keep the positive light pushing there. And as we meet with these groups and we bring it to fruition, we'll keep you advised of that. Also, at some point, as we mentioned, we do want to set up a retreat so that we can not only talk about forecasting for the next year's budget, but we also want to talk about some opportunities that we may have for some saving opportunities that I'd like to express with you, maybe in setting up some endowments and some other things for our community as well as our town. There's a lot of conversation on this different cities, but also at the state level and the federal level about trying to establish potential for endowments for the city so that in future years, our children's children, for example, will not have the tax burdens and the burdens that we have to pay if we set aside endowments. That I will explain to you a little later as we get through it. I've got a little book that I'm going to share with you. One of the candidates for governor this past year, Mr. Blackman, was probably he's 80-some, Dr. Blackman, probably 80-some years old. He introduced this to the new governor as well as to send it to the federal level. And I found it very intriguing that his process was to set up an endowment so that in future years, 40 to 60 years out, that there would be no tax burden on particular cities and or states. I've talked with the manager about it. We're looking at some ways to how we can establish an endowment, not necessarily for just taxes alone, but for economic development growth. And I think you'll be intrigued to how this will work. And I was very impressed by Dr. Blackman's example, but I'll be getting you some information for us to talk about it in the retreat and see how that works out. We do have the holiday seasons going on. There are several activities that's been established. We have a tree lighting ceremony, which is Thursday night at 7 o'clock. The Christmas parade, Mr. Johnson needs to know those who want to participate. If you hadn't got with him, need to get with him. That's on the 13th, I believe, Tim. Does that start at 7? At 7 o'clock as well. So if you want to participate with that, make sure you get up with him on that. I think that's all I have for right this moment. Council members have any comments or discussions before Mr. Manager gives his report?
On the subject of the retreat, when will we start? Do we have any idea of when we'll want to try to schedule that?
In times past, we've done it like in early to mid-January, probably mid-January, I think, what we looked at. I think that's what it was. We can start getting some dates if you can look at your calendars and recommend. I'd like to do it sometime, January, February timeframe before we get too far into spring. If you'll look at your calendars for those 2 months, I know you're out of the country for a certain period of time.
Not in that time frame, but I like to get things scheduled earlier than later, and I don't know, we typically do that on a Saturday, is that what
Well, we've done it both ways. We've done it a couple of nights during the week, and we've done it on a Saturday as well. I'm flexible, so whatever the board likes to do. We'll have a format, the manager and I was talking about, we're going to have a format to go by, similar to what we did last year when Mr. Richard was here. I thought that worked very well. But we're open to formats if you guys have other suggestions, but really just need to brainstorm and get some ideas together as we set schedules. But it might be good, Mr. Manager, maybe you can send out something to the board about clerk about possible dates that we can set aside, and then just see what the pleasure is.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'd like to get the input from the council on that. I guess just some direction, because I've seen, as the mayor indicated, that you have done them during the weekend or on a Saturday. And also, I just need some direction. It sounds like a lot of retreats have been for a day, a full day or most of the day has been the typical format. Just some direction so that if I start trying to give some options for dates for the council and get your feedback, I've got an idea. The ones I've been involved with have typically been a day long, start at breakfast and go until mid-afternoon, which seems to work pretty well. And that seems to be kind of close to what y'all done in the past also. So I don't really know how long, and if you want to go during a work day or Saturday or even an evening time, just some general, if there's some sort of consensus there, then it'll be easier to pick a time to kind of set it up and give you some choices.
Saturday, and maybe another location where we get our different departments and talk to them. So like that, just, to get some comfortable about they will speak with us to have a certain point, set aside for day, and then, go to different things, so that
I think Saturdays would be consensus, Mr. Manager, maybe? Saturday. Yeah, see if, is that okay with everyone? And just put out some potential dates. Any other comments from the council?
Yes.
Just a
Okay.
Yep. Mr. Manager, for your staff, I'd like to ask staff a few questions. Particular, let's see, Police Chief, if you could, if you all, I noticed the speed on Buckadary Road between Buffalo and North Brightly Boulevard is picking up again. Since those lights have been there, if we could sort of, if it's possible, beef up patrol in between that.
Can you give me the location?
Between Buffalo Road and North Brightly Boulevard on Buckadary. By that, where the schools are and where those 5 subdivisions are, the speed is picking up again, and if we could get tighter patrol on that so we can help our residents on getting in and out of those subdivisions. We would greatly appreciate it. Secondly, for the fire chief, if you don't mind, if there's someone can check on the status of that tire, that pile of tires at roadside.
Christmas
tire.
Christmas
looks,
tree.
Yes, sir.
Seen that, Mr.
It doesn't look like it's in compliance. I just asked if we could have someone follow up on that, please.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's code, but I'm sure you can follow up on that, have someone check on that. And finance director, if someone, what is the status on the software for our online bill pay? Do you have any idea or timeline about when we can have that option for our citizens?
Yes, correct. That would be the worst case scenario. I don't want to say anything. We have got the test data, has been loaded into the new system, successfully loaded. That's where we are now. We have to test it and see if it's right. But I don't want to tell you anything soon. I'm going to say spring.
Okay.
Have you had any conversation with anybody about that Christmas tree? We're talking about tires. Talking about it, rock tires. I've
Yes, sir.
noticed that myself, and
It's not a matter of a conversation, it's just a matter of code compliance.
so you've asked the fire chief and Mr. Emler?
No, I asked the fire chief. It's a commercial building on commercial property.
There should be no outside storage of tires there, or display of tires, I guess it is. I don't know, I think got them stacked up.
But they're stacked up over 10 feet high, and they're up on a wood frame billboard.
Online, they're ugly.
And you won't see that anywhere else in a municipality, in a large city. So, but I'm sure the fire chief, he knows about it. He can take care of it.
I do have another thing that he rang my bell on. There's a young man that rides a bicycle here around town that wears a helmet, and he's been having a teddy bear, and you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I came home from Raleigh the other day between 4 and 5 o'clock, and coming from Raleigh, coming across the new bridge on Gerwood Stevenson, he was on the bridge on his bicycle, trying to stay in that lane that I don't believe is there for that purpose. And it was, I'm gonna tell you, scared me to death. And I don't know if we actually allow people to drive bicycles across that bridge. There's no signage, I noticed, but is it, you're telling me those little side lanes are for our bicycles?
I think we can restrict traffic with bicycles on the bridge.
I'm not aware of any restrictions for bicycles on the bridge, other than obviously at that light at night.
The bike has to have lights. It just was something I observed, and it was very scary to watch that young man trying to keep that bike. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he makes that trip twice a day, coming and going, so.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know, yes.
He lives in West Smithfield.
Okay, any other?
I got a question just for Paul, and I apologize if you bring this up in your report, Paul, but I would like to see an update on the crossings project, more of on a routine basis, maybe at least at a minimum, every 2 weeks. I think, to me, that seems to have stalled. I don't know that it has stalled, okay? I probably shouldn't use that, but...
We meet the day of the council meeting. I've got an update about where they are.
Okay, but I have been approached by 2 business owners out there asking about it, and I just would like to be able to get back to them and give them progress on some type of routine basis. Thank you.
Any other council comments? We'll move to the manager's report. Mr. Manager, give your report, if you will.
Mayor, you got the written report, and I'll just summarize a few items. Actually, I'll start with the crossings project. We do have our monthly meeting with the contractor and the engineer on the crossings on the day of our council meeting. Basically, and there have been some delays on the project, as Mr. Moore noted. I think the subcontractors are out working, and they're right now, they're concentrating on, they're waiting for a 72-inch stormwater pipe to come in. They're expecting delivery tomorrow, I think, and that's been something of a delay for a variety of reasons, including, obtaining the easements and some other access points, getting some electrical moved and other utilities. So that has been very much an uphill challenge on that, but they are out there working again. They're relocating some water lines, and also they hope to even do some paving on the, I forgot what we call it now, Paul, the unnamed road out there as early as next week. Doesn't have a name out there, but the built-in road there. They actually hope to get some paving if the weather holds up, starting in about 5 or 6 days on that portion of the project. So I think there have been, again, some starts and stops lately, but we had a really good meeting today with the contractor. Some of the issues on the administration have been cleared up. And again, some of those issues that were a little bit out of our hands in terms of, again, acquiring the right-of-way, that's been cleaned up with the town attorney's help. So we're moving along on that pretty well now. So I think we'll see a lot more activity. And luckily, there is some work to be done outside of the main roads that we can do during the time when we're trying not to clutter the actual roadways. We can work off-site on the stormwater and some of the other issues that, again, won't impact traffic, and they can still keep the project moving forward. Having said that, I still stand by. They're probably still 5-6 weeks, depending on what they can get done during this Christmas season, 5 or 6 weeks behind, but in the scheme of things, really not too far off schedule, and they may even be able to catch up some of that over the next 2 or 3 months during this planned stoppage of work where they're not going to work on the actual roadways that are in use now. So they've actually got a little bit of catch-up time now. So I think things are kind of coming back together now. We've gotten past some of those hurdles. I may have mentioned to you before in one of the previous meetings that another one was just kind of waiting on some utility light platform or power platforms to be moved with Progress Energy. That took a long time to get moved, and we're still waiting on that. So there's been some things that have been tough to put together, and it is a very intensely a utility area that they're working in out there, and there's been a lot of surprises, most of them not very good in terms of locating and relocating those utilities. So that's been a big issue with this project. But again, I feel good about it. And again, it was one of the best things we had this morning, getting things back where I think they need to be.
As far as the right-of-ways, how much more in right-of-ways do we have to finalize?
How much more what?
As far as right-of-ways? You had mentioned you were concluding right-of-way negotiations and so forth. I mean, how much
that's really just
we don't have any right-of-ways. We just, in August, there was a problem with the utility box, and they had to acquire right-of-ways they didn't expect them to acquire.
Okay.
And that seemed to bounce around between May and August. Each time we had to acquire it, and the title was beyond all.
Okay.
It's been done since October 1st.
Is that the only outstanding right-of-way? I mean, or that you will?
No outstanding right-of-way.
Okay. So.
Now, there are two that are in two small condemnations.
Right.
They're acquired.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Along that subject, I don't mean to interrupt, but what is the situation with the Darden Group project?
So far, they actually had a meeting out in the site last week, and really, from the town's point of view, we've done months ago everything that was within our control, basically, and are ready to move at the next step. The Darden has not closed on the contract yet. I think they're working out some terms, but really not terms as much as who's going to do what to when the contract is actually signed. I think there's a pretty quick turnaround on what's got to happen, and there's commitments by the owner that things have to happen within a set time frame. I think there was some hesitancy to make sure that he had everything together in terms of the permitting, et cetera, that when he actually signed the contract, he could actually pull off the requirements, including the improvements to the pond and other permitting requirements to simplify it. I think there was also some negotiations on the permit that's needed for that project to try to make that work and more favorable. And again, that's between the present owner and the state, primarily Diener, to work that out. Nothing in our regard that's we're not reviewing, handling anything. We actually have been waiting for the owner probably for the last 6-8 weeks to move forward. We've been ready, willing, and able to move forward, and we're still in that position. We have spoken to Darden on a couple of occasions, and again, they were here in full with their full team last week. So I think it is moving forward. It's just got a few issues with some of the permitting, again, with the state agencies that they're trying to work through. But again, all said and done, it looks like it's moving forward, and it will take place. We have not heard anything additional on the grant application we made that would benefit Darden. We've got, if you recall, the person who helped us out with the grant preparation, Skip Green, he was going to try and make some phone calls this week to see if there's any status on that. The feedback he'd gotten so far is that they were wrapping up some other projects that with the administration change in the state, I think there's been a lot of busy people trying to get things cleaned up by the end of December. So there hasn't been much movement on that, but nothing bad in terms of that. But he was trying to get a word before the end of the year to see if there was going to be anything favorable returned on that. So again, I think it's essentially good news, but again, it's kind of out of our, we're not involved in those conversations directly between the applicant and the state.
Anything else?
Mayor, just a few things. I think y'all have, I've introduced, that's Brian back in the closet back there, Brian Adams, so if he wants to come out of the closet briefly, say hello. I think y'all met Brian. Brian's doing a great job. Brian's done a great job for us with the IT, helping us get up to speed with our, again, he's working on the website a lot, but with, our email, other desktop changes, and you can see we actually have a video camera recording tonight's meeting. The next step will be to actually get it on the public access channel so that we can look at it, but we figure if nothing else, we can practice on tonight's meeting and show it in the future when we kind of get that worked out again with the community college and their group. So again, we're getting there, kind of in sometimes in starts and stops, but we're making those steps. And again, I want to make sure if you all haven't met Brian, he's doing a great job for us, and he has been patiently recording the meeting tonight, and we'll see how his camera skills are the next day or two.
Welcome aboard, Brian. Glad to have you.
And Mayor, if I can get any more input on the retreat, I know you talked about some of the nature of what you might want to do in terms of the actual day of the retreat. That input, if you want to send to myself or the mayor, would be helpful as we put that together. And what I'll do with that, if it looks like the consensus is to go on a Saturday in either late January or early February, I'll send out or get Shannon to send out some dates that might work. And is it my understanding that you'd like to do it maybe like at the track somewhere upstairs in that room, somewhere in town, but just at not necessarily here, but I was thinking maybe we can do it at a table. We can all sit around, basically,
I'd rather do it at the beach or
Vegas.
We'll work on location, but just try to get a date. We'll get that squared away. That'll work for everybody. Mayor, you got the numbers in the report. I think I've returned some of the electricity's information from our special meeting a couple weeks ago. There are a few more things we're working on. I think there were some requests to get kind of a pro forma looking document from, even without names, different types of businesses, what they're looking for, just to give us something to look at. I've not received that yet. I know that was a request by one or more council people, so we'll get that. But if you have not had a chance to look at some of the information from electricities, it's really, it's actually very helpful and I think very encouraging in terms of our competitiveness with our rates in the commercial side, particularly. With some of our customers and those that we compete with. I think we're actually doing a pretty good job.
And Mr. Manager, on that accord, I did get the information and thank you, but I would like to make sure before that goes out into the public that we have verified the numbers, that we have reviewed and made sure that everything is correct and so forth. It's just to make sure, because I was kind of taken back with the numbers as well and the graphs, but I would ask that we really crunch and look at it and make sure that there were no mistakes or anything there before we start to make.
And I should clarify that again. These are numbers from electricities.
Yeah,
they're
right.
We did not create these. If you recall, they do our billing actually for our largest 25 or 6 accounts.
Right.
They use that information, their data that they actually, meter for us, and they compared it to, a Progress Energy rate.
Right.
So I could,
I just talk. I know we have the media here, and I would just ask that, we before it. I know it's public information right now, but before we start actually putting it out, I would really
Absolutely.
make sure we got it right, just as a precaution.
No, Mayor, that's all I have unless there are some questions.
Any questions of the manager on anything he's reported or in conjunction? If not, we need to go into closed session relating to NC General Statute 143, 31811 to discuss with the attorney in consultation. At this time, I'll be entertaining a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, aye. Opposed?